Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Monday, the 29th of January. We're edging ever closer to the transfer window slamming shut, as they say, and we are expecting a busy few days, you'll be pleased to know. Before we talk all things Rangers, a quick word for our podcast sponsors, the MPH Group. If you're looking for home improvements, folks, or a new boiler, then these are the guys to call. The all-important links are in the description below. Full team this morning. First of all, Joshua Barry. How are we doing, Joshua?
Good, Derek. Yeah, busy month, isn't it? And as Chris was saying just before we went on air, expect a very busy few days up until Friday. But looks like Rangers are busy, which is what everyone watching this video will want to hear. So hope everyone's in a good mood and looking forward to getting through a lot of talking points this morning.
Yep. Chris, I'd imagine it was a slightly busier weekend than normal for yourself.
It usually is, to be fair. It's like I thought Saturday was good. Myself and Josh both at St Mirren. I thought that was good. Sunday was slightly quieter until also the news on Cortes emerged last night. So a couple of busy hours figuring out what was going on there, got it sorted, and so we're now very much in the final days of the transfer window. So we'll do our best to try and keep on top of everything that's doing.
Yeah, right. There's no better place than to start the show than to stuck into the transfers. We'll start with the potential incomings. Of course, on Friday, we've not even discussed Mohamed Diamande. The news was confirmed after me and Stevie came off the video, but the Ivory Coast midfielder has joined Rangers from FC Nordsjælland, a loan deal with an obligation to buy. Rangers paying in the region of £4.5 million in the summer. Cannot wait to see him in action. And over the weekend, you will have seen reports, I think it was late Friday, but Jefte, the Brazilian left back, Fluminense over there in Brazil. He's been on loan at Apoel over in Cyprus. I've actually just come off a video with our favourite Cypriot football expert, Stel Stilianou, who gave us a bit of a rundown on what we can expect. He is closing in on a move to Rangers, 20 years old, 6 foot Brazilian, likes to bomb forward. He's another one that's certainly exciting the supporters. Yesterday, it was confirmed that Oscar Cortes, the Lons winger Colombian, I believe he's got one cap for his national team, is also closing in on a move to Rangers. And I'm hearing as well the club hopeful of adding one more before the window closes. Chris, what is the latest with these two?
The Brazilian left back, not heard much about him over the course of the weekend. That one came out just after the manager's press conference on Friday, and we spoke a wee bit about him, Derek, on the members video live from the Auchenhowie car park on Friday afternoon. I've had a wee look at him over the weekend. He certainly fits the new profile. I think it's safe to say that Rangers are looking at. I had a piece on the website last week, I think it was actually Friday morning, talking about the Diamande deal and how Rangers are going in this new era of going down different markets, looking at different profiles of players. So I think already we can see the influence of Clement and see the influence of Niels Koppen and the names that Rangers have been linked with and the profile of some of these guys. So I think Jefte certainly fits into that, as does Oscar Cortes. So that was the one that emerged last night. As far as I understand, that one is not as far along the line as was initially reported in South America last night. Not as far along the line as people maybe hoped it was and got overly excited about. No deal has yet been agreed for Cortes. That's not to say that there won't be. That's not to say that Rangers aren't interested. They are very much interested in the player. They're doing what they can to try and bring him in. I think that will be another loan with obligation to buy. But as it stands, there's no deal has been agreed on him. The club are still working on that one to make that happen. And I said reports last night that he was already on his way to Glasgow. I tweeted that last night, and it was the latest one that I was getting some more for some bizarre reason. He is not travelling to Glasgow. He was not and is not on a plane. But as the statement from the Colombian National Association said last night, he has been released from their camp because there's obviously moves afoot. So Rangers working on that one, and it's definitely a player they are They are keen to sign, but as it stands, no deal has been agreed.
Interesting. Yeah, Rangers well and truly in the driving seat for Cortes. He's another one that I'm excited at seeing, Josh. I don't know if you've done a crash course on both players over the weekend. I'm sure you've been busy scurrying away trying to find out more about them. What can we expect if both sign on the dotted line?
Yeah, well, I think I have done a crash course, hoping to spend a bit more time looking at them today, but like everyone else, trying to watch a little bit from games and pick up some things from the clips that we have seen. Obviously, it's always difficult to judge what a player is really going to be like, but you can, I guess, look at what style and their potential. I think, firstly, Derek, it is probably important to set the context of, Niels Koppen came into the club and there was a lot of noise, as Chris will back me up on, a lot of noise coming out from people within the club about Rangers wanting to change their recruitment focus. We've heard that before. We've heard similar noises, I would say, before, Derek. But John Bennett was quite explicit at the AGM in December, wasn't he, when he said, effectively, the football board, the reason that Rangers had changed that is because they realised the model that they had before, they didn't think it was setting them up for that fourth pillar, I think he calls it, of being a continuously successful player trading club. Philippe Clement spoke about that when he came into the club. He used the phrase imbalance, speaking about his squads at the AGM. He's not said something like that in a press conference, and I think it's telling the difference between the two. But it's clear that Rangers have needed to change what they're doing recruitment-wise. They've needed to adopt more of a model like a PSV where Kloppen was before. Again, we don't know how these players are going to perform, Derek, but I think generally what you can say is the type of markets, the type of transfers that probably supporters would have liked Rangers to go into more, as opposed to maybe looking down south as frequently as they did before. And again, one of the points you heard coming out of Ibrox when Kloppen was appointed was that it was important to have someone who had, knowledge of wider markets and maybe didn't just specialise, or their first port of call was not down south in the variety of English markets down there. And although Kloppen was, I think, officially came into his job on the 2nd of this month, he was working away well before that, whether that be with the lead in the Fabio Silva deal, which I think was as early as a week before Christmas. And obviously it looked like it was going to be a quiet couple of weeks at the start of January. Clement said after, I think it was Dumbarton, he said, look, we're working on a few, and he suggested that there was going to be a bit of a snowball effect, and so it has materialised. But on the two players, very quick crash course from what I've seen, Derek. Jefte looks like more of it's clear that something is happening, and something has been happening at left back for Rangers. My preference would be you bring someone in to compete with Ridvan, and give a bit of a different option in there. Barisic has 6 months on his contract. In my opinion, an ideal situation is you get a bit of money for Barisic, who's been a fantastic servant, but you need, I think, a freshness in there. I don't think he's going to be offered a new contract. Ridvan, we've seen, I think, the best of him in a Rangers shirt as of late in a variety of different matches. But Jefte looks like someone who maybe, I think Ridvan's someone who wants to play inside the pitch more often, Derek, and Jefte maybe, from what I've seen, looks like someone who's going to hit the byline more, a bit more of a powerful runner, as you say, a bit bigger in stature, and that is a factor because you've seen St Mirren brought on, I think it was James Scott at the weekend, and he was a good foot taller, if not more, than Ridvan Yilmaz. That is a factor at points in the Scottish game, so I think it's important to have a bit of variation. And Cortes is interesting because, as you say, a really highly rated Colombian prospect hasn't really worked out at Lens. From what I've read and looked at and seen, I think a lot of that is to do with the fact that they're playing with wing backs instead of wingers. He's played at centre forward when he's come off the bench a few times. But I think someone who would fit that mould of being a kind of a wide player who's a bit of a goal scorer. We've seen how much Abdallah Sima, how important he's been to Philippe Clement since he came into the club, and obviously he's out for a couple of months, so he would fit into that bracket, I think, of being a quite explosive player over distance who is a goal threat, who does have this quite encouraging track record behind him. And yes, it's not worked out these 6 months at Lens, but you would say that he's still. When we were talking about Diomande, Derek, we were saying, okay, we've seen a lot of Rangers signing wonder kids who were wonder kids or players with a lot of potential a few years ago and have had a few years of losing their way, hence why Rangers have managed to sign them. It looks now like hopefully Rangers are trying to get into these players' stories and get them to Ibrox slightly quicker instead of signing them 3 years down the line when it's not worked out. So looks like an exciting signing. Again, you don't really know much until they actually play and you can get a good feel for them. But I would say that it looks like the type of transfers that people and supporters would have hoped Rangers, the markets people would have hoped Rangers would have moved towards when Kloppen was appointed this month.
Yeah, Jefte, certainly exciting signing. Origami Dinosaur says, I've been hearing new noise about Ridvan to Galatasaray. Anybody know anything? Galatasaray now have a lot of cash because they've sold Sasha Bowie to Bayern Munich for around 30 million euros. So they do have more money. They want Ridvan. Okan Buruk, I was told, is a big fan of him. Whether Ridvan fancies moving to Galatasaray and the flack that would come with that remains to be seen. But of the two, Chris, I think all the noise is being centred around Ridvan. I want to see him stay personally. He's been getting a consistent run in the team, and I think he's been performing well. However, I wouldn't be too surprised if he was to move on before the window shuts. And with Jefte coming in, does that tell us that either Borna or Ridvan will be departing?
I think the left back story has been one of the more unexpected ones over the course of the window. I think if we'd all sat here at the start of the month, we wouldn't really have envisaged having this many rumours and this much chat, and having spent so long discussing the left back position, because it didn't really seem like a priority for Rangers. I think the news of Ridvan's potential exit has also dominated over the last couple of weeks. I messaged someone about that this morning, still waiting on a reply. So if it happens while we're on air, I'll bring it to you. But as far as I'm aware, there's no real update on that. But I think it's clear that Rangers are perhaps bracing themselves for that situation. You know, the manager spoke after the Copenhagen game, I think it was, saying Ridvan can only leave once we've got another player in the door, because he couldn't afford to leave himself short in that area of the pitch. As I've said before, it is quite ironic that Ridvan has turned into a player in the last 4 weeks when there's been this much discussion about him. I spoke to Josh about it at the weekend, and the last couple of weeks been really impressed by him. Is that to say he's definitely the left back for Rangers going forward under Clement? I think it's still too early to say, but he has certainly been impressive in the last wee while. I think that the price is probably gone up for a lot of people over these last couple of weeks. But I still think he's one of the few sellable assets within the squad. I don't think there's that many guys within the group that you can say we could definitely bring in X number of millions for, and that we won't lose any money on. So I think that's a big thing for Rangers. Whatever fee they get for him, whatever wages he's on, does the manager believe that he can utilise that fee and those wages better? If he does, Ridvan leaves. If he thinks that he can't, Ridvan stays, and that's basically how it's going to go. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit of movement. But like Josh says, I think we're coming to the end of the Barisic era at left back. I think if Ridvan stays, it'll be hard to see Borna get into the side over the next couple of weeks. So I think we're coming to the end of Barisic's time. Left back is clearly an area of the squad that will need investment and will need addressed. Whether Rangers do that in the next couple of days or whether they do it in the summer, I think it probably depends how much money Galatasaray want to put on the table.
Yeah, and like I say, folks, they have got a bit of cash now to spend. It's whether they can strike a deal with Rangers. Macca with the point here, he says, Diamandi can also play left back, Chris. He's versatile. Yeah, he is very versatile, so that could be a potential option. Another departure that looks to be edging ever closer. Well, I say that. Francis says, anything more on the Cifu situation? That's another story that emerged over the weekend. Rangers accepting a loan bid from the Turkish side, Rizespor. A loan deal with an option to buy him for £2 million in the summer. I did hear over the weekend that as much as Rangers had accepted that deal, Jose Cifuentes doesn't fancy it, and I've just had it confirmed by a journalist this morning over there in Turkey saying that that is correct, that he doesn't fancy that move over to Turkey. We've got another Scot right on our hands, Joshua. Cifuentes, it hasn't quite worked for him at Rangers. Would you be sad to see him go?
I don't think it's worked, Derek. And I think there's an interesting parallel here, isn't it? We're talking about Cortes, a South American young player who's highly rated, who, Cifuentes obviously played quite a lot for his country. And 6 months ago when Cifuentes signed, or just under 6 months ago, there was a lot of excitement. So it's an important, I guess, factor to remember in transfers. We don't know how things are going to materialise. But I think the slight difference with a transfer like Cifuentes, Derek, is Cifuentes was signed to play in a very specific role. I think you have a signing like Diomande, who there is that versatility to him, and manager to manager, I think there's always going to be a role for him. But I don't think that's quite the same with Cifuentes, and you've seen that because he's always kind of played as this shuttling right-sided number 8. And if you looked at what Beale was trying to do in the summer with his lineup, we never really saw the maybe first choice 11 he wanted to play all that regularly. But Cifuentes was not signed to play in a double pivot who was staying deep in the pitch and building play. He was meant to be running beyond. You remember the game away at Servette where he played that fantastic ball to Danilo at the back post. I think he was meant to be a player who was plays that right on that right side of the triangle, give a little bit of something different, a forward runner from midfield. So then when you have a manager who comes in who plays a very different style, and I asked Clement about this, I think it was before the Aberdeen game, and he said, yeah, it was when he kept talking about puzzles in midfield, and he says, yeah, we're going to have to change what we do in there effectively, because the role that a Ryan Jack or a Nico Raskin might play, a more conventional midfielder, is not the role that Cifuentes could naturally play as quickly perhaps, and I think that's alongside injury why we've not seen him quite as much under Philippe Clement, and is why Rangers I spent a long time chasing him to play in midfield, and yet Dujon Sterling has got ahead of him in the pecking order. So I think the slight difference is, Derek, hopefully, and this comes into the conversation of why you need a sporting director, and Michael Beale's faced a lot of criticism for the summer window. There's lots of contrasting noises about it. I think some of the signings are looking better now. I think there's still issues with some of the ways that some of the more Beale-led transfers. And I know we'll come on to speak about Cyriel Dessers in a little while. But this is why I think you need a sporting director or a director of recruitment, head of football recruitment, whatever Coppen's title is, in a quite prominent position alongside the manager. Whenever you're spending a lot of money in any business, whenever someone's probably going to be there longer, and you'd imagine Coppen will be there longer than Clement, that's how these things tend to work in football clubs. You need different points of view. You need, I guess, two contrasting short-term and long-term ideas pulling in opposite directions, I think, to get the best outcome at the end. And I think what we saw in the summer is too much of the former, too much of the short-term, too much probably manager-led. And hopefully what you're seeing now is a good balance where it's not as if Clement is going to be just handed these players and told, okay, go and work with them. But clearly the recruitment focus has shifted at Rangers, and clearly Coppen's been able to come in and lead a lot of these signings, as we spoke a lot about when the Fabio Silva deal was agreed, Derek. So Fuentes, I just don't think it's worked. If you look at the starting 11 at the moment, I don't think there's a clear role for him. If, for example, Tavernier was still a fullback who always played on the outside and was up and down all game, and Cifuentes maybe had a kind of inside role in that right-sided midfield position, then I think that could have suited him. But I don't see a future for him necessarily in one of those two midfield positions we've seen so far. So I think trying to get some money back on him would probably be the best option. But as you're saying, obviously the player has to be happy with that as well. So it's one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I don't blame him if he doesn't fancy it. Incidentally, it's a bit crazy over there at some certain clubs, but that is the word at the moment. The Rangers are looking to offload Jose Cifuentes, but whether he wants to go to Turkey or not remains to be seen. Some comments come in. Let's get to a few of them. Dave's Doug says, "Morning lads, was nice to be surprised getting Stell back on about Jefte. No bother at all, Dave. You can check that video out, folks, if you want to learn more about Jefte. That is on the YouTube channel now. And Chris, can you see, I mean, we've talked about Cifuentes there. I think Ben Davis is another. There's a few murmurings that Rangers will look to offload him in this window. Can you see any others perhaps departing before the window closes on Thursday?
Who knows? Having lived through the last 28 days and 10 hours of this transfer window, it's hard to say no on anything. But I don't think there's that many guys in the squad. I think the squad will need tinkered with and tweaked with again over the course of summer. But I'd be surprised if the manager really wants to make too many widespread changes to it right now. I think there's guys like Cifuentes who are clearly falling down the pecking order, could be moved on, and you would really notice it. I think if Ben Davies, for example, was to, Rangers would then have to go and potentially bring in another centre half there. So we've not really seen any centre halves linked or touted over the last couple of weeks. So obviously Scott McKenna was the most kind of pronounced one over the first fortnight or so of the window, but again, nothing in that, and it's not really materialised into anything in terms of centre half. So I'd be surprised. That's not to say come the summer Davies isn't one that potentially Rangers look to move on, and again, come the summer, I'd like to see a bit of money spent in that centre half area, potentially looking at Balogun moving on, Leon King probably moving on, because you don't know had his chance. I think come the end of the year, we are looking for a new partner alongside Conor Goldson, but I don't think that's something that the manager will look to do right now. I think we've seen Suter come in and play well the last couple of games. We know what Balogun can do alongside Goldson. I think that's your three, and I don't see the manager really wanting to move away from that during the second half of the season.
Yeah, big hello and welcome to LS1872 has become a member of the YouTube channel. Thank you very much for supporting us, buddy, and welcome aboard. Hopefully you'll enjoy the extra content that we're putting out. Certainly will be a good few shows this week, that's for sure. Right, let's move away from transfers then, Joshua, because Rangers were in action at the weekend against St Mirren. Hard-fought 3 points, shall we say. It wasn't the most insulating display over there in Paisley, but it's all about victories at this moment in time, and Rangers managed it once again. Cyriel Dessers, the man of the moment, he's really showing now why he was brought to the club in the first place. Philippe Clement has worked wonders with him. He just looks like a completely different player now, and he got the only goal of the game. You put on the radars yesterday, the Stats Bomb radars on Twitter. Quite remarkable, the difference in them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, on the game, very hard fought. Chris will testify it was very cold, much colder than I expected. Do you know the game it reminded me of, and I presume you were at this, Chris, was the Rangers 1-0 win at St Johnstone under Gio.
Kamara goal.
Yeah, Kamara scored after like 5 minutes, and you thought, okay, this will be a...
And that was it. Nothing else happened.
And nothing else happened, but then there was a couple of moments late on, and Clement said this, where all it took was one slip, and John Suter has a fantastic block. Rangers, again, not looking great from a defensive set play, which has been a bit of a theme of the last few weeks. And, St Mirren hit the post, and then we're having a different conversation. But what you would say, to give, I think, a bit of credit, is Clement's not had many games like that where it's felt like they are a slip away from conceding points. You need those in the season. Let's not pretend that you don't. Not every team is going to play well all the time. And when you do have a day where, listen, the conditions, Derek, were really difficult to win. The pitch, Chris and I obviously really close to it because it's quite a small ground, and Chris will agree with me. I'm sure that the pitch around about the dugout area was not complimentary of a good first touch, to put it mildly. No. So it was difficult conditions, and yeah, again, really important for Rangers to come away from that game against Hibs with 3 points, 3 difficult enough away games in a week. I know Rangers are real favourites for 2 of those games, but difficult conditions in a lot of them. And I thought it was telling that Clement said he was prouder of his team on Sunday than after a more convincing win against Hibs in midweek. But Dessers, the radars, Derek, what these show, if people haven't seen them before, and you can look at them on Twitter, there's a kind of long read on Dessers on the website. The before and after is quite stark, and obviously he was just getting up to speed, so you've got to caveat it with that fact. He didn't look nearly as fit. And I think there's still, I think that moment in the recent Old Firm game, Derek, until you score a goal really in an Old Firm game to make up for that, that's always going to be a factor. I think the majority of people would still think that Rangers need another number 9, but it felt like a big week for Dessers. Since Clement came into the club, Dessers, I think, is 0.75 goals per 90 in the Scottish Premiership, is the second best, and people, I'm sure, will be delighted to know that the only players ahead of him by, I think, 0.02 is Lawrence Shankland, so very close between those two. But he does look like a different player, and it's not that I think he's doing absolutely everything right, but it did feel like a big week. If you flash your mind back to the last time that Rangers played at Paisley, Derek, which was Stephen Davis' final game in interim charge, the prospect of the away stand singing Cyriel Dessers' names just felt miles away. And Dessers said in midweek, either you embrace the pressure or it kills you. Yes, there's still questions about, okay, what is the long-term answer here? As I say, I think that Old Firm miss, people are going to say until he scores in an Old Firm game and decides it, because Rangers haven't won a meaningful game in that fixture for far too long, then that is going to be held against him. But I think what you do have to give him credit for is in the short term, he has turned around a story which seemed to have an inevitable ending. I'm sure some people will still never be won over by him because his start was so difficult. I don't think he's the best striker in the world, but what he is doing is scoring goals pretty consistently. As I say, 0.75 per 90 in the Scottish Premiership since Clement arrived. If you said when Clement arrived that come the end of January, Dessers will have scored near about a goal a game, then I think you'd have got pretty good odds on it. There's a real pattern as well in the type of goals he's scoring. Again, mentioned in that piece, but a lot of left footers. Only one, which was the deflected, the shot that deflected off him at Motherwell. Only one has come from the right side of the box. So just felt like a big week for him, a bit of a change in mood. And when Rangers have needed him to start scoring goals, because let's not forget when Danilo got injured, there was a real question of what do Rangers do now, because it was not viewed as though Dessers could come in and contribute as he has done. He's been able to step up in those moments. So I think the majority of people watching this video will still think Rangers need another number 9 before the end of the window. But at the moment, Dessers' scoring has had a really good week, and as I say, I think he has really turned around a story which seemed to have an inevitable unhappy ending. Now we don't really know, and he's doing well, and that's a big leap forward from a few months ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we come to you, Chris, huge thanks to Bluebells Are Blue, who's gifted 5 Rangers Review YouTube membership. That is outstanding generosity, buddy. Thank you very much for that. So, folks, if you want to get a YouTube membership, then Bluebells Are Blue has kindly gifted 5 of those. That's cyber point for you, buddy. Alan McInnes with a point here, Chris. This was few eyebrows raised when the teams were announced, Chris. He said, very surprised at the manager's use of Sterling on Saturday. Was that driven by the state of the pitch? What did you make of it? Was it, I imagine you were like the most of us, slightly surprised by the lineup that was announced?
I didn't expect to see him play wide. Certainly didn't expect him to see him play wide left. I think the ends justify the means. Almost the Rangers won the game. I thought Sterling played okay. It wasn't outstanding. Certainly wasn't terrible. I think it's just I think the manager maybe said pre-match. It's just a case of he's only got so many players. He's short of options in the wide areas. One, because that's how the squad was assembled over the summer. Rangers just wouldn't have that many natural wide players, and 2, also have lost Sima, and there's different issues within the squad. So I don't think it's something we'll see regularly. I don't think if they don't go and sign a left winger, then we'll see Sterling play there all the time. But he does have certain attributes that do fit it. He's become almost the ultimate utility man. It's no matter what position you put him in the team. He gives his all, puts in a shift. So he doesn't always play 9 out of 10, but very rarely drops below 6 or 7. And you do need guys like that in the squad. Josh had an excellent big read on him last week, going through his career, some of the challenges that he's overcome, why he felt Rangers was the right place for him. And you have to say, out of all the success stories under Clement over the last 3-4 months, Sterling's perhaps one of the more unexpected ones. He was seen as the guy who's just going to be back up to Tav. He'll get some of the cup games, he'll get the 15-20 minutes here and there, and we'll not really expect or see much more from him. He's now become a guy who you said, well, we could play him at right back. He's perhaps one of the starters in the middle of the pitch because there's doubts over Nico Raskin's form. He's now shown that he can play higher up a line and he can play wide on either side. So he's become a real valuable asset to the squad. And as he's done that, he's actually become a potential real valuable asset on the balance sheet as well. Because if he can continue this upward trajectory, he becomes someone who potentially Rangers could make a bit of money on. As we spoke about Cifuentes earlier on, that deal's not. That's not going to work in the way that Rangers thought of. They could buy fairly low and sell kind of high. They're not going to make a million on him. Cifuentes, that's just not worked out. Sterling, if he can continue in the way that he's going, he's potentially one that Rangers could make a bit of money on going forward. But he's also still got to really establish himself within the side. But I think the way that he's really come on under the manager is testament to his own quality, testament to his own mentality, but obviously, like so many other players, testament to the manager as well.
Yeah, I was going to say that, Joshua. It's like Dessers, Lundstrom. You can name a good few Rangers players that have just improved just under the new manager, which is, as Chris says, testament to Philip Clement. But Sterling for you didn't quite work at the weekend, I don't think. But the manager, obviously, as Chris says, just looking to plug holes and utilise players as best as he can. I don't think we'll see it too much going forward, but it has been a brilliant transition into that midfield area in the main for Dujon Sterling.
Yeah, no, to the comment, I actually asked Clement a not dissimilar question about that after the game, and he said because of the pitch, because of the circumstances, Rangers couldn't play their usual combinations, effectively couldn't go through the pitch as much. And if you look at the goal that Dessers scores with that run to the left, St Mirren were pressing Rangers a lot on Rangers' right-hand side where they were building play, committing a lot of numbers to that. And watching Clement in the first half, he was routinely asking his team to play those balls, those diagonals over to the left, where he had Dessers making his run, where he scores his goal from. And as mentioned, where he seems to score a lot of goals from that left-hand side. And then you also had Dujon Sterling make those runs from the left as well. So I think it was partly because you don't have Abdallah Sima making those powerful runs, cutting in from the left-hand side. So it's a bit of trying something out, a bit of the fact that, as Chris says, Sterling has these attributes to his game which I think can transfer to so many different positions and roles on the pitch because he's a technical ball carrier. As mentioned in the piece that we did, the long read piece with which kind of charted his story to Rangers, but also charted how he's become this central midfielder. He was one of the most promising young players in Chelsea's academy for a long time. You don't, even at youth level, you don't make that step. You don't play for a team that good who wins FA Youth Cups 3 years in a row, I think it was, if you're not a really good technical footballer. And I think that's why Rangers will hold aspirations that he can go for a lot of money in the future, because it's not just that he can recover the ball so successfully. He's pacey, he's strong, but he's a really technical player as well. Okay, maybe he's not going to receive the ball in the half turn yet and play through the midfield. But if you were to look at that starting 11, there's not many roles he could not play. And again, if you factor in what he can do on the ball, then that's a pretty exciting player potentially there. So yeah, I think it was just a case of Rangers wanted to play a little bit more directly, don't have those runs of Sima. If not, it would maybe have been a bit more of I think they could have pulled that move off a little bit more, because that's one of Sima's biggest qualities for me is those diagonal runs in behind a kind of high offside line. We've seen him score a goal from a run in behind the last time he was playing in Paisley, didn't we? But maybe not a role we're going to see him play all that much going forward. But again, increasingly, I think in these types of games, it's going to be a question of where he plays, not if he plays. And I also think it's important to mention that Rangers probably wanted a bit of size next to Ridvan Yilmaz as well. Again, that's something that Sima offered you, whether it be, if you watch that back post, quite a lot of the time when St Mirren did get down the left-hand side, they were swinging in crosses to the right-hand side. So I think all those factors combined to a starting 11 that Chris and I spent 45 minutes trying to work out and didn't even consider it. Although someone did tweet me, I forget their name, and they did call it, so credit, I think it was Chris, so credit to him. But yeah, I think we'll see him routinely in a variety of positions going forward. And his rise over the last couple of months, again, probably speaks to how Clement's changed things, because if you'd said when he came off the bench against, was it Dundee at home, Chris, when it was Rangers were down to 10 men and Cifuentes had just been sent off, sliding doors moment, and Sterling came off the bench and was playing in midfield, and everyone kind of looked around at one another and thought, is he playing in midfield? Rangers didn't have many other options. To then go on, putting a man of the match display in the cup final to really change, I think, the game in Real Betis by closing down Isco, to win player of the month, to be a standout in an Old Firm game, playing in the centre of midfield, having played left back in the last one. I think that's a player who is going to be an exciting asset for Rangers over the next couple of seasons. And I think it's given him a platform there to show this potential that he's long had. He had a difficult spell with illness in 2020 that kept him out of almost a year of football and could have ended his career, and now making up for lost time and doing very, very well under Clement.
Yeah, absolutely. Rangers, of course, have come back from the winter break in really good form. 3 wins from 3 in all competitions. We've now got a host of games at Ibrox, starting off with Livingston on Saturday. Aberdeen come to Ibrox a week on Tuesday. Then we've got the Ayr United Cup game, followed by a game going against Ross County. That rearranged fixture, that game in hand, folks, on Valentine's Day. Looking at those fixtures, you don't want to look too far ahead, Chris, but it's you would say a favourable run of games. I'm sure Aberdeen will no doubt be busting a gut to get a result at Ibrox, as they did do so earlier on in the season. But that start after coming back from the winter break, Rangers, we know historically have struggled, but that must give you optimism that they can go into this run of fixtures and take maximum points.
As myself and Josh spoke about in the post-match video at the weekend, I thought it was interesting that the manager mentioned that fact that he had been told about these kind of the slow starts that Rangers have made after winter breaks. He's very much a guy who doesn't like to reference the past in terms of signings or a form or a personnel, but I thought it was interesting that he brought that up. It's also something that has been spoken about in and around the club over the last few weeks. Rangers have done what they had to do. They've got through a tricky cup tie at Barton. They've come through a difficult away game, Easter Road. I thought the manager was right to be really pleased with how they came through the weekend there, because that was a potential banana skin fixture for them as well. If they can now do a bit of business over the last couple of days of transfer window, that feel-good factor will only increase. You're then heading into, as you've outlined there, Derek, heading into this run of fixtures, a chance to really start building up ahead of steam. Rangers can only focus on themselves. They can only take care of their own business. Whatever happens elsewhere happens. Whatever the mood in the camp elsewhere, and that's nothing that Rangers can control. Just need to keep these performances ticking over where possible. But more importantly, it's the results. There's a chance to build a real bit of momentum over these next couple of weeks now. And as we've seen in previous title races, momentum at this stage of the season can carry you through so much of it. And it's really, really important that Rangers do that. So they have that opportunity. So the feel-good factors there that manager's spoken about, rebuilding the confidence within the squad. He's rebuilt that relationship between the squad and the support. It feels like everyone is pulling in the one direction once again. And time will tell where ultimately that could take Rangers this season.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll stay with you, Chris, because you've got a great spoke to Jack Butland, of course, over the weekend. Always speaks really well, does Jack. And obviously, he was asked about potentially being part of the England squad at the Euros in the summer. And he says, all I can do is do what I am doing. I haven't been in that England squad for a while. If I said it was at the forefront of my mind, no. If it comes, absolutely, I would love it. Ultimately, I have to do the job for Rangers, and the fact is that we are playing regularly at the minute, playing in some great competitions. We have got European football to come, so hopefully that is a good platform to continue to showcase that. I know they have got a lot of players and a lot of goalkeepers to look at. Knowing the England camp, they don't leave any stone unturned, and if it's something that they are thinking about, then they would have done that already. Listen, I think we're obviously wearing the blue-tinted specs, Chris. I would love to see him part of that England squad. I think he deserves to be included. I look at some of the goalkeepers that England have, and there's not many that I would take over Jack Butland. I know Jordan Pickford is the number one there. They've got Dean Henderson, Sam Johnston as well. But I'm picking Jack over all those all day long. Do you think he's got a shout of being part of that England squad?
I hope the fact that he's playing in Scottish football doesn't count against him. That point was made to him at the weekend when we spoke to him, and he said, "Look, I don't think it will." If you look at the level of his performances over the course of the season, you look at the consistency of the performances, the big saves and the big moments, a couple at the weekend, a couple at Easter Road. For me, he deserves a place in the squad. That's not to say he's going to be the first choice. I think we all agree that Jordan Pickford is nailed on as Gareth Southgate's first choice, and he will start. But if you're looking at someone who is experienced, who's played at a good level, who is also playing games, a lot of the options England have got, maybe not playing regularly, certainly not playing at a high level in terms of European football as well. If Rangers could get through potentially another couple of rounds in Europe, I think Butland has to win that conversation. It'll be easy for people to knock it down and say, why would England want a goalkeeper that's playing in Scotland? But you have to look at what he does. You look at the levels that he's playing at. You look at the influence that he can have in a dressing room. Hugely experienced, a real leader. He's a good voice both on and off the pitch. For me, he deserves to be one of the. He deserves a place in that squad. I don't think he'll be first choice. I don't see him starting games, but as a number two, as a number three, England could certainly do worse. And if he doesn't make it, I think he would have to be very, very close to it.
Yeah, go and read what he had to say, folks, on the Rangers Review website. Plenty to keep you entertained over on the site and also on the YouTube channel. As I mentioned earlier on, I spoke to Stel to give us an insight into Jefte. I've also been speaking to Alon's podcast at around about 5 o'clock this evening, where we'll get a bit of an insight into Oscar Cortes. So that is certainly worth tuning in for. I'll also be on for those that are members on the YouTube channel. Ali Bain will be joining us at 1:30 over there in America. He actually did a scout report on Cortes for a website that he runs as well. So you should know a bit about the hopefully the incoming Rangers acquisition. It certainly is going to be a busy few days in terms of transfers, both incomings and potential departures as well. Right, huge thanks to Joshua and to Chris for joining us on this Monday show. Thanks to everyone for interacting with the programme as ever and for your support to the channel. It is much appreciated. If I don't speak to you later on, then we'll be back on Tuesday. So enjoy the rest of your Monday. But we'll speak to you a little later on. Bye for now.